We'll start with Mr. Mahendran. If you want to make a short opening statement.
Yeah, not a problem. Good morning, panel, and thank you for offering me the opportunity to speak at your inquiry today. My name is Sharath Mahendran, and I am the creator of the YouTube channel Building Beautifully, a channel about transport and urban planning in Sydney. Since I started the channel 2.5 years ago, my channel has achieved over 41,000 subscribers and has amassed over 4.6 million views. Of relevance today is that on my channel, I have a dedicated video about the issues with the Western Sydney Airport Metro, which has received 119,000 views. The committee no doubt knows that public transport access to the new Western Sydney Airport will primarily be via a new metro line, the Sydney Metro Western Sydney Airport. Quite the mouthful, I must add, that runs to the new airport from the T1 at St Mary's. This might sound logical at first glance, but if you look deep enough, you're bound to be mystified by this decision. Despite the new airport being located in southwestern Sydney, the established parts of the region, such as Campbelltown and Liverpool, are not going to be serviced by the new metro. If you live in the major town centres nearest to the new airport, such as Campbelltown and Liverpool, you simply will have no quick way to get to the new airport via rail because of the route that the government chose. Since I wrote my submission, I am happy to report that Transport for New South Wales have created routes for the rapid bus links to the new airport, but the time estimates are pretty outrageous. It will take 55 minutes to get to the airport from Liverpool by bus and 66 minutes from Campbelltown. Now, for context, it will only take about half an hour by driving from both town centres to the new airport. Even more alarmingly, it turns out that getting from Campbelltown to the current existing Mascot Airport will only take 45 minutes, which is longer than how long it will take Campbelltown residents to get to the new airport. So what's going to happen now because of all of this? Well, travellers and employees of the new airport in southwestern Sydney are not going to be as likely to take public transport to the new airport. Instead, they're going to be more likely to want to drive. Employees are going to be spending hours a week in cars, spending thousands on fuel, tolls and car maintenance every year, harming the environment and reinforcing car dependency in a region already far more reliant on cars than eastern Sydney. So I'm not here to just berate the decision to build the metro from St Mary's because I do appreciate the vision of this project. The plan is to extend it north to Schofields and Tallawong and south to Macarthur. This will make it easier to get to the new airport from Campbelltown and it will allow better connectivity from the northwest. But I believe it is far more important that the Southwest Rail Link is extended as soon as possible as a heavy rail line. So just quickly, it will better link Liverpool, Cabramatta, Fairfield and Glenfield to the new airport. Also, by extending it as a heavy rail line and not a metro, you save money on converting the existing Southwest Rail Link. With some track rearrangements at Glenfield, the T8 could be rerouted to the new airport, which would connect both of Sydney's major airports by one rail line, making transfers a breeze. Plus, this would allow the metro to be extended in one straight shot down to Macarthur instead of having a branch to Macarthur and a branch to Leppington. Scheduling around branches is notoriously difficult otherwise. Finally, the Southwest Rail Link actually serves an important purpose to the Sydney Trains network, providing somewhere for services to terminate instead of forcing all heavy rail services on the main south to terminate at Macarthur. So truthfully, I cannot think of any reason to not extend the Southwest Rail Link as a heavy rail line as soon as humanly possible. In the interim, this inquiry needs to urge the government and Transport for New South Wales to come up with faster routes to the new airport from Liverpool and Campbelltown. Times of nearly 1 hour simply will not cut it. If dedicated T-ways need to be built to cut times down, then so be it. Build them. I thank this inquiry again for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today, and I strongly hope what I say can help inform and shape the future of public transport at the new Western Sydney Airport.
Thank you. Roydon or Matthew? Yep. Roydon, I know that you're probably well across this as well.
Yes. Thanks for inviting EcoTransit to appear before this inquiry. EcoTransit supports the extension of the existing Southwest Rail Link from Leppington to Western Sydney International Airport Terminal. As part of the Sydney Trains network, heavy rail as the highest priority and the least cost-intensive both fiscally and environmentally as an option for providing public transport into the Western Parkland city. EcoTransit notes that Sydney Trains with double-deck heavy rail could deliver passengers seated comfortably with luggage stored effectively between Western Sydney Airport and Sydney Airport in less than an hour, with trains running every 10 minutes. The committee is invited to study EcoTransit's proposed train service plan, showing a reconfiguration of the Sydney Trains network to include direct trains for Western Sydney Airport to Central, Liverpool and Sydney Airport, converting the South West Rail link Leppington to Glenfield into Sydney Metro is a downgrade and a segregation of the Sydney's rail network. Additionally, the proposed Stage 2 of Western Sydney Airport Metro to Glenfield has a major devil in its detail. It does not connect with the Western Sydney Airport International Terminal, but actually starts one station south at Aerotropolis Station, as seen as in the New South Wales Future Transport Strategy 2056. The construction of Western Sydney Airport International Terminal Station and Aerotropolis Station should be paused, pending the outcome of this inquiry. EcoTransit urges the inquiry to investigate and make the recommendation that the Western Sydney Airport International Terminal Station and Aerotropolis Station be redesigned for 4 rail tracks, 2 Sydney Metro from St Mary's and 2 Sydney trains to Leppington. I should also note the Fix Liverpool Transport campaign's recent engagement with Edmondson Park and Leppington residents earlier this year has found many residents questioning why it's necessary to actually replace an existing Sydney Trains line with Sydney Metro again. The New South Wales Government in 2011 initially committed to expansion of Sydney Trains City Rail Heavy Rail network, including for North West Rail Link. But Transport for New South Wales bureaucrats overstated the benefits of removing Sydney trains from future rail expansion in Sydney by suppressing public servants and consultants that had inconvenient findings that questioned the Metro. We ultimately urged the New South Wales Government to support the expansion of Sydney trains on the T2 Leppington line, T5 Cumberland line, as well as on T8 Airport and South Line, especially to Western Sydney Airport via Leppington on the South West Rail link. Thank you. And my counterpart Matt has a few more words to add.
Thanks very much, Roydon. I'd also endorse what Roydon and Sharath had to say about the South West Rail link. As a regular user of Edmondson Park Station and others, I'm intimately familiar with the surrounds. So EcoTransit has long advocated for sustainability and cost-effective public transport, which means essentially building on what we've already got when it comes to major transport infrastructure. We have a Sydney Trains network that has been dramatically underfunded over the decades, but it still performs its task admirably well. The potential, though, for the complete breakdowns of both metro systems and Sydney Trains has shown us recently that there needs to be more resilience built into the system in the event of these black swan events, which are becoming too regular to call them black swans. So, my 2 major points are that we must retain public infrastructure in public hands, which entails the South West Rail link being extended from Leppington through to the new airport, as my colleague has just stated. And if we're to accept the reality that from the north it will be a metro from St Mary's, then a Sydney Trains connection to the south builds in this resilience that we've been speaking about, should there be one of these catastrophic failures caused by who knows what might be the ultimate cause. And so in addition to this, this inquiry must call for a pause on the building of the metro from St Mary's down towards the new airport. So the rather unfortunate building of facts on the ground, realities that can't be reversed, is stopped, and that we do have the time to properly consider what transport infrastructure we need at the airport. It also allows for fantastic connections between the 2 airports in peak hour trains. Given the quadruplicated East Hills line, one can travel from Glenfield to Walleye Creek in 22 minutes. I've done this repeatedly. It's the existing infrastructure actually works really well when you give it a chance. So this idea that to be made effective, efficient, we can only go through metro is curious at the, to put it mildly. The final conclusion is that we must call for a pause on this on the building of this infrastructure, on the building of the metro connection to the airport in Aerotropolis.
Thank you. Mr. Tranter, did you want to make an opening statement?
Look, yeah, I'll be fairly brief. I will just say the concluding paragraph of our submission was basically to recommending reconsidering, reconsidering the type of rail mode for St Mary's to the airport and Aerotropolis, which I'm still not even sure whether we should say Aerotropolis or Bradfield or whatever. There's a bit of terminological confusion, I think. But yes, I think in addition to that, there is a very, very persuasive case for Leppington to the airport having a higher priority for the reasons that my colleagues, my fellow witnesses here have stated. And I would also add, as Roydon said, the awkwardness of the current plan where the heavy rail from Glenfield would terminate at Aerotropolis and people going to the airport in that direction would then have to change for one stop to the airport. And obviously the benefit of, aside from the relative benefits of different modes, the benefit of an airport to airport journey on one train would be obvious. I'll leave that there. Thank you.
Thank you. I just, we'll move to questions, but just before we begin the questions, I wish to inform you that you may wish to take a question on notice and provide the committee with an answer in writing within 14 days after receiving the questions. Essentially, if there's something you'd prefer to provide in more detail. Sorry, Roydon, can I just quickly go back to something you were talking about in regards to the station, and you say that a closer reading of Sydney Metro announcement for Metro from Glenfield reveals that Stage 2 of the Western Sydney Airport line will not connect to the actual international airport terminal, but only the Aerotropolis.
Yes.
Sorry, could you just provide a bit more detail?
I'm happy to.
Yeah.
So, as outlined in the EcoTransit submission, the EcoTransit submission cites the press release from Sydney Metro, and also I've got in front of me is the Future Transport Strategy 2056. It's a bit hard to read, but
That's right. Maybe if you could email that,
yes,
if we could get a copy of that later,
government
Roydon.
document,
Yeah.
News Future Transport Strategy 2056.
Oh.
It shows the Southwest Railing, what is marked as the New Cumberland line, only extending as far as Aerotropolis Core, and then one station beyond that is Western Sydney International Airport Terminal. So therefore, the Stage 2 of this proposed supposedly Western Sydney Airport Metro line doesn't actually go to the airport terminal.
Yes. So essentially that was going to be my question as well, which is at some point there's got to be a mode change because you've got heavy rail at one end and metro at the other, unless you convert the Southwest line to metro. And so I just wanted to get each of your thoughts on that, including Sharath. I know you've done a video on it, and I wrote you congratulating you on it. So just get everyone's view on sort of what's the best option for the Leppington line, and also given budgetary considerations, there's the ideal and then there's the practical. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yep, if I may. So extending the Southwest Rail Link as heavy rail Sydney trains, as per the EcoTransit submission, we have actually put together a train plan proposal that actually shows how Sydney trains can be integrated all the way to Western Sydney Airport with services connecting to Sydney Airport, Central, Liverpool, etc. That would be the least cost intensive, as it's simply just an extension of the line beyond Leppington through Rossmore and up to Western Sydney Airport. Yes, thank you. For the shortest distance compared to other potential proposed metro extensions. So hence why extending South West Rail Link would be first priority, and also why EcoTransit is calling for a pause in the construction of Western Sydney Airport Terminal Metro Station and Aerotropolis Metro Station, because ultimately, as my counterpart Matt has said, the Sydney Metro tunnelling is essentially locking out any opportunity for an extension of heavy rail South West Rail Link, because without the 4 tracks, we're begrudgingly forced into having a metro extension from Aerotropolis through to Glenfield, or at least Leppington, because there's no other. It's physically not possible to extend the South West Rail Link if the construction of Aerotropolis and the airport terminal metro stations isn't redesigned.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with that. I think that extending the South West Rail Link on its own is absolutely a priority, because, as I've pretty much very clearly outlined, residents in areas closest to the new airport, like Liverpool and Campbelltown and Fairfield, are going to have a lot of difficulty getting to the new airport easily because of the route that's been chosen. Buses are a valid form of public transport, but the time estimates that have been provided to us by Transport for New South Wales back in May are just simply outrageous. They're very long. Something needs to be done to bring those times down, I believe, because the simple matter of fact is, even if we were to start constructing or start working on a business case to extend the South West Rail Link tomorrow, that line is not going to be extended for probably at least another 8 to 10 years. And that's assuming a very best case scenario, which is quite unlikely. But coming back to the South West Rail Link, I feel that I've kind of outlined pretty clearly why I think it needs to be extended as a heavy rail line. It provides capacity to the Sydney Trains network. It would allow the current existing metro from St Mary's to the Aerotropolis to just be extended in a straight shot down to Campbelltown instead of having to have those annoying branches. It also allows those links to those other suburbs, and I think most importantly would allow you to be running services from the new airport to Glenfield, then to the old airport at Mascot, and then to the city. So you'd have one train line. Quite frankly, I think I've always said on my YouTube channel and publicly that I believe that would have been the most logical option for the airport link to begin with. But even now, it still can be done, and I believe that this inquiry should recommend that.
Okay, so just want to go back to EcoTransit and your submission around the rail plan. So at present, you could potentially go above ground heavy rail and have a mode change at either Aerotropolis South or Aerotropolis Core to Metro. In your proposal, how do you see that working in order to get heavy rail all the way into the airport? Would it be tunnelling, or would it be above ground, or
Combination of both.
Yeah, combination of both. Yeah, and then the station boxes at the Western Sydney International Airport Terminal Station and Aerotropolis Station would need to have 4 platforms.
Right.
The current proposal is for only 2 Sydney Metro platforms.
Yep.
And also, on that point, the redesign of those 2 stations would also mean the station box probably needs to be longer, because it appears that the Western Sydney Airport Metro is also a 3 to 4 carriage metro, not a 6 to 8 carriage metro, which we're seeing on the northwest and city and southwest. So it's, in essence, a much smaller metro of a different diameter or different length and different power supply, different specs to the even existing metros that we have.
As long as we're consistent, we've got a different mode of metro on every single line, I think.
Yeah, we're potentially having 3 separate metros.
Yeah.
Yeah, the incompatibilities are a little bit ridiculous to have 3 metros incompatible with one another, even though they're all being built at the same time.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think we're all very, very aware of that.
If I may, speak.
Sorry, Guy,
Sorry, yes. I was going to say, in theory, somewhere, we've got a common gauge, and I had been thinking a common, system of electrification, 1500 DC, but if in fact our different metro lines are having different electrification systems, then that gets wiped out, and basically, in theory, you could talk about the 2 sharing tracks for one stop, but then if you've got driverless trains with drivers, I think, that would be the option you would wipe out as the very first point of any report. You've got to look at side by side tracks.
Sorry, you got a question, Judy?
No, I'm just sitting here gobsmacked.
Okay. One of the questions that I've asked a few other people, and because I know you're a detail guy, Roydon, so you may know some of this. The current routes have been identified, but what's not clear is if any land has actually been identified as being reserved for future rail. Are you aware of any reservation of the lands themselves?
So I've printed out the Southwest Rail Planning Business Case document from their website. This is a Commonwealth Department. So the business case for this Western Sydney Airport Metro, especially the second stage, is a joint Commonwealth and state-funded business case in progress. Transport New South Wales has started to reserve some corridor in the corridor preservation process, but from my understanding, the business case has not been finalised, and I think there is much opportunity as part of the business case to actually explore properly a Sydney Trains heavy rail extension, and not simply focus on a defaulted mode before the business case has even been completed per se.
The land's been gazetted. There are a number of residents in my electorate who can't sell their land and are about to have it, and Transport hasn't purchased it, and they can't lease it, and they've got a train going through their house. So it has been gazetted, just hasn't been acquired.
But for both lines?
Sorry,
we're doing our own little committee inquiry up here.
The extension of the Southwest
Yeah,
corridor has been gazetted.
I think they've done both. Yeah, you can see
they're
it on the
gazetted, but
website.
not reclaimed. Yeah, so they've been built on essentially. Yeah. Yes. So
that's another inquiry.
Sorry, Warren.
Sorry, I came in late, so I'm not sure where the questioning is up to. I'm trying to catch up. So
No, that's okay. So
Leppington.
So essentially, because we had the problem from the other side where the metro is being built from St Mary's, and obviously that's joining up to the Western Line. One of the things I was going to ask you, in terms of the heavy rail coming through Glenfield and joining up with the airport, a lot of movements the further west you go tend to be north-south rather than east-west, and you'll see that on the Regent's Park line, Roydon, where they're actually coming through, and the movements around to Parramatta to the city. So when you're looking at that joining up with the airport existing line, how do you see that marrying up with what is actually happening with what we think will be the movements, where they'll be going from Campbelltown to Penrith route, Liverpool through to Parramatta, kind of the movements sweep across that corridor, and that's who'll be captured by the airport.
Yeah, look, north-south connections are very important. Look, we know that construction of Stage 1 St Mary's to Western Sydney Airport has commenced, and it would probably involve potentially too much of a cost to reconvert that back into Sydney Trains construction, although that being said, construction hasn't been completed. And north-south connections from St Mary's through Tullong, Schofields and through Campbelltown, that is important. EcoTransit initially would also have proposed a line that it would be done as heavy rail to allow freight to actually divert off the Western Line, avoid the metropolitan city centre part towards Parramatta of rail network, and go down towards Southern Highlands and then complete Malden Dumbarton through down to the Illawarra. But now, seeing that it's been Stage 1 of Metro Western Sydney Airport has been construction commenced, I think that boat may have sailed per se.
Yes. One of the other documents that we've been presented, I don't know if you've seen it, Parramatta 2050, that one of the proposals in there from the Parramatta City Council was to extend the metro through Parramatta and down to the airport.
Yes, that's the new Cumberland line. EcoTransit's position, as my counterpart Matt has said, is that to use existing infrastructure where possible. At this stage, EcoTransit would not support abandoning the Y-link between Marylands and Parramatta, which skips also Harris Park. We would see maintaining direct trains from, say, Maryland Station both to Granville and Central as well, and also from Maryland's Fairfield all the way through out to Blacktown, Schofields as well. Parramatta to Epping, that section should really be serviced by an extension of Parramatta Light Rail. There's no reason really to convert Cumberland Line to Metro, because converting the Cumberland Line to Metro also has the implication affecting the section between Cabramatta and Liverpool, which means if you convert that to Metro, it again makes it impossible for any Liverpool to City via Regent's Park Inner West Line trains again. And that's going to cause more grief.
Thank you to Roydon for giving so much detail. I just want to make the simple point, and short, that retaining public infrastructure in public hands must be a priority, and it's the ship has sailed as regards the Bankstown line, but and elsewhere, but it beggars belief that we would be considering converting the Fairfield line into Metro.
Well, certainly I wouldn't be considering it as the member for Auburn that takes in part of that line, as Roydon's well aware, but it was a proposal that was brought before the committee by Parramatta that basically it's like the good soldier's sweck, all lines lead to Parramatta in the Parramatta Council proposal.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that. So I think in terms of converting the Cumberland line, I would agree that doesn't make much sense. Extending the Metro West, which is going to end in Parramatta, to the new airport, that could be something I would support. Like, they should definitely be investigating that. The Sydney Metro West, I personally support that project. I think it would be made a lot more useful if they could extend it west. Get it going through councils like Holroyd and Fairfield. These are areas that don't generally have very good public transport access, and I've spoken about that at a previous inquiry. I think it would be a brilliant opportunity to create more dense, walkable neighbourhoods in Western Sydney. Going back to the north-south links, I strongly believe that Sydney needs more north-south links. I've again spoken about that.
But isn't this where the opportunity costs are coming into? So the Metro West is $25 billion, and it covers almost the same distance as stage one of the airport line from St Mary's to the Aerotropolis, which comes in at a cost of $11 billion. So if you're marrying up extending, you talk about Marylands does have a train station. Westmead now has 3 because it has light rail, metro and heavy rail. If you're talking about suburbs like Narellan and Oran Park and which are greenfield sites with gazettes for the land, do you think there's a greater efficacy with just getting on and building, if nothing else, the metro between the Aerotropolis and Campbelltown via Narellan? So you're capturing that part of southwest Sydney where there is absolutely nothing, and you're at least providing a gateway for those outer Southern Highlands suburbs coming in through there and creating opportunities. Well, I mean, which one would you look at first?
In terms of, so I would definitely look at extending the Metro South from Aerotropolis, because I think that right now, just ending it at Aerotropolis, it's a bit of a dead end. It doesn't really go anywhere, and there's nothing there yet. I mean, I think the idea of building a city there, it's a great visionary idea, but I think right now as it stands, there's nothing there, and it's not going to benefit many people until you extend it to Campbelltown, and then you have the added advantage of linking people in Oran Park and Narellan to the heavy rail line at Campbelltown. They can, as you mentioned, the T8 line has pretty great services because, they've quad-tracked it all the way past Revesby, so it's a pretty fast service. You're linking those people in Oran Park and Narellan to that really brilliant T8 service. You're also linking them to St Mary's. I still think we should support a business case at least to extend the Sydney Metro West to the new airport, but I would strongly support a extension of the Metro South to Macarthur and an extension of the South West Rail Link as a heavy rail line.
Can I just jump in to extend on that? With being from Riverstone and talking about disconnection, the Metro line from Schofield's or from Tallawong that doesn't meet up with Schofield's T1 line, and then through some of the most disadvantaged areas of Sydney through to St Mary's, where do you see that fitting into the mix of the new lines coming all over the place, and perhaps in particular to the line from Westmead directly to the Aerotropolis?
Yeah, I absolutely, and I haven't really gone into this in much depth, but I do genuinely believe extending it from St Mary's to Tallawong would benefit so many people in so many ways. For starters, linking Tallawong to Schofields, it's somewhat out of the scope of the Western Sydney Airport, but it is related. That would provide so much benefit to communities along the Richmond line and towards Parramatta, because getting to the hills from those areas, even though the metro is so close to Schofields, no one could really benefit from it along the Richmond line, because for some baffling reason it just ends at Tallawong. And extending
2.7 kilometres.
Yeah, it's just so short, and it's always bogged my mind that they didn't just extend it to Schofields. It would make commuting from Parramatta to the hills so much easier, you know. So extending it to Schofield, and then extending it to, as you mentioned, some of those disadvantaged communities. You have, well, Marsden Park is a very new community, but then you have those communities like Traeger, like Wayland. You could probably extend the metro line and build some stations along there, allowing for some urban renewal and connecting those communities better than ever before to not only key employment centres like Macquarie Park, Castle Hill, Chatswood and the CBD, but also to the new airport. And what you're doing in the process is creating a much more integrated public transport network, because you're going to have opportunities to transfer at Schofields, to transfer at St Mary's, and then also at Epping and Chatswood, because of course it keeps going. So I would strongly support that as well.
And connectivity is key.
I actually don't have any questions. I'm just learning.
Okay, Nathan.
Since we're going all out transport nerd, I just wanted to get your thoughts. In the previous hearings, the interesting topic of very fast rail came up. Your thoughts on it generally, and whether if you were to put in a, I don't know, Sydney to Newcastle, Sydney to Canberra, Melbourne link, whether the airport would be, Western Sydney Airport would be a critical stop as part of any fast rail.
It could potentially be, and the Sydney stop might be a Western Sydney stop, closer to Parramatta,
Yeah.
and indeed, given the amount of redevelopment that's taking place in lands like Camellia and Rose Hill, that might even be your place for a grand interchange. These are just not speaking from any formal documents that we have, but and yes, I haven't given the matter tremendous examination in terms of from there south towards the airport. There would be some problematic terrain to cover, including Prospect, but I certainly would be in favour of it, and I think there are significant opportunities. Having an interchange with the Metro West as well would allow those commuters coming from the Central Coast or North to transfer to a service that could potentially get them sub 20 minutes into the city. But also, you've got to remember that Central Coast commuters aren't just going to the CBD. They would also be interested in going to Parramatta or other parts that are more accessible to such a stop.
Sorry, not to drop. Sorry, if you're
no,
and I think building on that, as you said, people, not Central Coast commuters and commuters all over Sydney aren't just going to the city, and I think we need to stop just talking about how are we going to get to the city. So building that very fast link between maybe say Melbourne, Canberra, Sydney, Newcastle, Brisbane, etc. Putting it, it doesn't need to go to Central. It could go to somewhere like Sydney Olympic Park, which I think is one of the proposals. Parramatta also makes a lot of sense. And again, this is why it's a brilliant reason, because you say, do we need to maybe say build it to the Western Sydney Airport to allow that connectivity? But this is why I actually mentioned earlier that we should extend the Sydney Metro West to the new airport, because by extending that to the new airport, imagine you have that high-speed rail interchange at, say, Sydney Olympic Park. You could go from Canberra to the Sydney Olympic Park, get off your high-speed train, get onto a metro, get to the Western Sydney Airport, and who knows, maybe you could do that all in like 2 or 3 hours. And I think that's pretty impressive given how long it takes to get from Canberra to Sydney by train right now. It's outrageous how long it takes. It's like 4 or 5 hours.
And since we're going all out nerd, how would we, in your opinion, how would we unscramble the egg of having the different metro voltages throughout the network? What would it take to?
I think we need to go back and take a good look at how the metro business models are. Some of the arrangements in the public-private partnerships of it as well. For example, from my understanding, is that the Parklife Metro Consortium, which has been given the tender for Western Sydney Airport Metro Stage 1, has, I think, much more control over designing the specifications of it. And so the Transport for New South Wales has left it up to the private sector, per se, to design the specifications of it or how long the metros will be. And then you've got different operators, such as Metro Trains Sydney, running Northwest City and Southwest. They've designed into different specs. Now we're having 3 different metros. It's a similar issue, for example, with the light rail in the city. The L2 and L3 don't merge well with the L1 to Dulwich Hill. So there should be a standard specification for all single-deck fleet per se. And this goes back to potentially some of the lessons from pre-federation. When we standardised everything, now we're determined to be breaking it apart again. So it's essentially
scrambling more eggs.
One might say, and I'm happy to table this document as well. 1855 revisited fixing the trains in Sydney. Sandy Thomas, who was a consultant who was involved in the 2010 SMH-led Sydney Morning Herald-led public transport inquiry. The breaker gauge or breaker different specs in having a quote-unquote integrated network is laughable, and we should really focus on a holistic network with interoperability that services everyone and not simply leave it up to specific niches of the private sector to determine the scoping and the specs of our transport.
So if you can provide that to
Yes.
the guys. And Guy, did you have a view on the unscrambling? Because I think it was you that originally raised the problem of the different voltages.
Basically, I'm not well enough across the sort of stages of construction and planning of each one to know whether any of that can be walked back. Basically, I mean, European railways have multi-current locomotives and trains, but you would not build a multi-current train, I don't think, for just one stop from Aerotropolis to the airport. And in a sense, a metro system has less problems, than say a light rail or suburban rail system with junctions and interchanges. The lines do tend to be more separate. But yes, it was, just a shocking state of things that, just like with light rail lines, then again with metro lines, that we've sort of let different standards
Across the whole network.
Yeah.
All right. Is there any other questions? You right? Good. All right. Okay. Thank you. I've lost my piece of paper again. Thank God for you. All right. Well, thank you very much for attending the committee today. You'll be provided with a copy of the transcript of today's proceedings for corrections. The committee staff will also email any questions taken on notice from today and any supplementary questions from the committee. We kindly ask that you return these answers within 14 days. The committee will now break for lunch.